Why do we give our time, money, and energy away so freely? We sit there like Oprah. You get a yes, and you get a yes, and you get a yes. We need to learn to be a little bit more stingy. Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Kira Wackett. Thanks for joining me for another video as we work to empower and equip you with the confidence and skills to write your own story so that you can live a life on purpose. In this episode, we're talking about the idea of yes and no, and this saying we've all heard, if it's not a heck yes, then it has to be a no. We are all yes people. We're constantly saying yes, giving our time, money, and energy to people, places, and things that we don't want to. Rounding up at the grocery store to donate to a charity that you've never heard of because you're afraid someone's gonna think you're a jerk if you don't. Taking that meeting with someone that you aren't interested in working with, only to spend time before and after complaining about it. Going out with friends to a restaurant you don't really like, or spending time doing things that they wanna do to make it easier. Or buying that shirt that's just okay because it's on clearance, rather than getting the one you really want at full price. The idea of heck yes or no stems from the notion that we already know what we want to do and who we want to be. We've just conditioned ourselves to stop listening to it, silencing our wants, our needs, and feelings to make way for our shame. Shame is the voice you hear in your head every day. It's the fear of disconnection and the fear of not belonging. I did a video on it a while back that takes you way deeper into it, so I'm going to be sure to post that in the notes below, just in case you haven't done the work yet to really understand shame and how it might be showing up for you. But in short, shame is fueled by the internalization of a belief that we're only worthy or good enough if we act, look, or present a certain way in the world. Our success, happiness, and fulfillment become externally motivated. And as such, we begin to shift our yeses away from what we want to what we perceive or know that others want or would prefer. Or I guess at least at a minimum, would warrant the lowest possibility of judgment. I should do X because it's important to Y. If I do or say A, people will think B. It's not that big of a deal, so I should just go along with it. Our logic becomes riddled with the fear of letting others down, being judged or being rejected or left out somehow. We have to make the right choice for everyone else. We have to make this socially acceptable choice, even if it costs us time, money, and energy. We almost shame ourselves out of wanting anything other than this by calling ourselves selfish or saying things like, oh, don't be so dramatic, or think about X, or it's not that big of a deal, just suck it up and do it. We lose the ability to answer for ourselves. We disconnect from our body and our emotions as they're the primary guideposts to indicate how something feels and if the yes actually aligns with us and what we want to do. We give our voice, our power to the people around us. So rather than using the heck yes or no barometer, everything suddenly just gets labeled as a yes. Kind of like when you even just think about glitter and it's suddenly everywhere in your entire house. Now, I want to be clear that there are many circumstances in which the position to make a choice for anything other than yes isn't viable. Safety, life circumstances, and privilege, context, and survival change the game and what we're talking about. Those are not the situations and experiences that I'm talking about here. I'm talking about answering that phone call at the end of the day when you don't want to, or going to the big family holiday event because you don't want to cause drama, even though you really don't want to be there. Or saying yes to social media for fear that you'd be missing out on something and the belief that your boredom is intolerable. Maybe it's saying yes to your email while you're still laying in bed in the morning, which is something I'm still very guilty of, instead of getting up and taking some time to take care of yourself first. Here, we're looking at the decisions in which shame has overridden your natural barometer, where the story you've told yourself, or ultimately has been told to you, is that your purpose lies in service to everyone else, and anything outside of that gets in the way. But here's the thing. We're not made of infinite time, money, and energy. And when we condition ourselves to put everyone else first, we leave little, if anything at all, for our own choices. And that only creates a deficit in every area of our life, leading us to feel lonely, resentful, and ultimately burnt out. In these situations, not only are you saying yes to the actual expense, maybe the hour for a meeting you don't want to go to, the $10 to the game you didn't care about, the time and energy spent talking about things that don't matter to you, or the energy you put into worrying about what everyone else is thinking. But you're also saying yes to the time and energy you spend thinking about it beforehand, and the time and energy you give it after the fact. The complaints, rumination, anxiety, resentment, frustration are all taking from your limited stockpile, which works beautifully with your shame's goal of silencing you and leaving you so exhausted that you don't fight back. But living this way has only led you down a rabbit hole of chasing self-healing, longing for a life that feels complete and feeling lonely in almost every connection that you have. So what can we do about it? We need to start by clarifying just how many things you're saying yes to. And yeses aren't just the act of transaction of time or money or energy. A yes also occurs every time you don't say no. Avoidance is another form of saying yes to the stress and anxiety associated with whatever's at the root. So consider all three areas: time, money, and energy. And how are you currently saying yes or living in these spaces? Get curious about your daily interactions. And again, it's more than those big ticket items. We're also talking about that charity roundup at the grocery store, or the extra 2 minutes that you let someone go after a meeting time has ended, or the time that you lay in bed at night ruminating about everything you did or didn't do. Who, where, and what gets your time, money, and energy, or TME for short? And why? Who's it for? What would happen if you didn't say yes? Next, get clear on your values. What's important to you? And how does it connect to your current TME investments? I think about my values in honesty, assertiveness, and intentionality. And when I'm saying yes to things like mentioned above, I'm not in line with those values. Third, you need to reconnect with your body. Diana Chapman was recently on Tim Ferriss's podcast and talked about the idea of a full body yes and this idea of body intelligence. She does a fantastic experiential exercise on the show where you look at how to get clear on what a heck yes, heck no, and everything in between may feel like in your body so that you can start to rebuild connection to those cues to help you know when you want to say no in the future. I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes below, and I highly encourage you to go and listen to that full podcast episode and get to know a little bit more about her and the work that she does. Next, when you consider situations in which you have or feel pressed to say yes, when you see that the answer really is no for you, we need to create anchors to help root you to your boundary. Use a concept called play it through to the end, and consider the outcome if you say yes and if you say no. Notice where and how your shame shows up to try and write possibilities as certainties. Someone will get mad at me versus someone might get mad. And also notice which one feels better in your body and with your values. Finally, we need to develop a toolbox for managing our distress. Shifting away from prioritizing everyone else's needs and wants is guaranteed to cause pain and discomfort, whether it's just in your head, between you and other people, or a combination of both. That distress is not a signal to retreat. That distress is a signal that you're asking your brain to form new thinking patterns. You're asking your brain to drive a new route, which is uncomfortable. But much like there's a good pain and a bad pain when we're exercising, there's a good pain and a bad pain when we're doing this work. Learning to tolerate your distress will help you gain clarity on this and insight into when your pain is a sign of growth versus when it really is a signal to retreat for safety. To help you with all of this work, I've created several handouts to give you the opportunity to assess your TMEs, to determine your values, and to really go deeper into understanding the ways that we can allow our thoughts to just be thoughts. I'll put a link to all of those in the show notes for you, as well as that link I mentioned to Diana's interview on Tim Ferriss's podcast. Before you go, We all know writing things down and sharing them out loud is one of the best ways to increase our buy-in and reinforce the work that we're doing. So leave a comment below with your next steps, takeaways, and of course, any questions that you have for me so that I can best support you in your journey. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe and save yourself the time and energy of having to check back for new content, and instead get an alert whenever there's new awesomeness that you can come back and watch. And if you want to stay in the know on all of the happenings of Adversity Rising, plus get exclusive content and specials that I don't share anywhere else, subscribe to my email list. I'll also put a link in the show notes for that. Thanks for being with me today. I'm so excited to see you take back your TME and get more comfortable saying no. And remember, you have the right to author your own story. Let's take back the pen. See you next time.